41. Yeah.
This man just turned his pillow hands into deadly weapons. Or did he? Alright, before we crown him the next Deontay Wilder, what does training power punching for 30 days actually look like? And more importantly, does it even work? I'm Abner. Typically, we break down crazy shit that happens in combat sports, but this video popped up in my feed, and I thought it was a very interesting experiment. For quick context, this video is from Pigmie, a known YouTuber who is known for running interesting, sometimes a little bit quirky experiments. Let's see if he can crack the code to punching power.
But I ended up finding this device on Amazon that was supposed to measure punch force when you hit it. Also, getting this thing hooked up was another thing in itself.
Now, it looks like he's using something called InnoLife, a product which he got on Amazon. Now, I don't think it really matters whether it's a cheap product or an expensive product. I think for this particular experiment, it matters a lot more that he uses the same thing every single time. Because otherwise, if you jump from one product to another, results are going to be skewed.
Anyways, after a cringy warm-up, it was time to test my punch strength. The pain shock through the arm is actually like, I feel like maybe preventing me a little bit.
Alright, so for his starting best, a 280-pound jab, a right cross coming in at 289, and a left hook coming in at 297.
So I took the three of my highest readings for my jab, my cross, and my hook. Not as good as I thought they would be. I'm gonna see if I could double it.
By the way, be super careful whenever you're training your power jabs. That shit will fuck up your wrist if you didn't do it correctly. Ask me how I know. Yes, I'm talking from experience.
It looks like the average professional boxer punches with a force between 700 and 800 pounds of force, while in my readings, I was getting under 300.
Okay, now he mentions that pro boxers punch with an average of 776 pounds. And I think this is a very good case of asking ourselves again, what device was used to measure this? Was it the power cube? Because if that was, that's a lot more accurate of a product than the InnoLife. And for taking averages across the landscape, right, for pro boxers in this case, I think that matters a lot more.
I want to let you know that I've actually been messing around with Bob and working on my technique, watching tutorials and videos online here and there for the last 5 years. Slightly embarrassing, I know, but the point I'm trying to get across is the gains I'm planning to make in this video won't just be beginner gains because I'm punching for the first time.
Okay, he mentions he's been training since 2020. I'm sorry to say this, Pigmie, but throughout this entire video, even though you're stressing improving technique, I don't think you've quite achieved good technique, especially for power. Now, it's not to say that getting hit in the face by Pigmie wouldn't hurt, because it definitely would, but I don't think it carries that devastating KO power, at least not in this video. I don't think it gets close.
I trained several exercises that I could do that I came across online in forums and videos where people claimed that these exercises help increase punch strength. And I trained these exercises in sequence Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
All right, great. So we're getting into exercise selection, what I was personally looking forward to the most.
The first was the resistance band punch, wrapping a resistance band around the back and holding it tightly in each hand.
From personal experience, most of the exercises that he's mentioning here are pretty solid, even though it is unfortunate that power and explosiveness has a big genetic factor. These exercises do help you push you to that limit.
The second was the simple yet effective explosive push-up. I tried to do a set of 10 of these, followed by 15 more regular push-ups for a total of 25 push-ups.
He mentions explosive push-ups, and these are actually some of my favorite to do. Although I don't think he's actually doing them correctly, or at the very least, he's not doing them to the extent that he could be doing them. It looks like he's just pushing himself just enough to get off the ground. However, when you're training for power explosiveness, you need to put everything behind that push. Get up as far as you can from that floor. Otherwise, I don't really think you're working it correctly. Because from what we know, when it comes to generating power and explosiveness, you need to generate the most amount of power and strength in the shortest amount of time possible. So if you're really only generating enough power to get off the ground a little bit, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice by not doing it all the way.
Now, I also did this exercise where I tried to increase my grip strength while in the punch motion. I did this by using a Captains of Crush gripper, holding it down, and then just punching Bob.
Now, some of these exercises I actually haven't seen before, like the grip punch and thumb strength.
Now, also under the same idea, I worked on my thumb strength, which is the final digit to tightly close the fist.
I can definitely see how that can help at the point of when your fist makes contact, allowing it not to buckle. And again, if you have a weak or fucked up wrist like mine, this may be worth giving a shot.
Now, something else I started doing that was very interesting was bone conditioning. At the end of every session, punching sand up to several hundred times.
He also proceeds to punch sand. Honestly, I have no idea how effective that is. But from what I've heard off in the distance, the wind, I've heard that training knuckles in such a way could potentially lead to arthritis. I have no idea if that's true or not. If you're considering doing this, might be worth looking it up just in case. What I do like to do though is planks on my knuckles. That helps align your knuckles, your wrist, your forearm, all working together to create a strong punch, basically. Now, he also mentions core and compound exercises.
Now, I also trained what I heard was very important for the punch, more core and rotational core exercises to hopefully help get more power and strength through the core to the fist.
I definitely agree. I do at least twice a week. Landmine rotations are killer. That's one exercise that's really helped me with core stability. It helped me release some back pain even. And I saw a direct transfer into other lifts like squat, deadlifts, and in boxing, of course. It just goes to show you how important core work is.
Testing my punch strength, it was up. Super motivated by seeing these improvements.
Okay, improvements in week 1. I'm actually kind of impressed. He actually made what seems to be decent gains.
Now, something else very important I want to emphasize that you probably are gnawing at your teeth at because I really haven't mentioned it too much is technique. With every punching exercise up until this point that I was doing, I was also trying to focus and work on and think about technique. Not just punching my arm forward, but trying to drive the force from the ground through the hips with upper torso rotation to deliver a snappy, powerful punch.
Now that he's touching on technique, everything that he says is correct. However, I do have to criticize that he does look somewhat stiff and it looks like he's mainly punching with his arm, which I can relate to. When I first began training, I was pretty much training like a bodybuilder for multiple years before I began to box. And I was even 40 pounds heavier at 190 compared to what I fought at last time, which is 154. So I had this exact same problem. And I think if he can properly learn to use his legs, it may naturally fix what I'm seeing right now. Now, disclaimer, this is coming from a boxing perspective. If he is mainly training kickboxing, Muay Thai, honestly, I couldn't tell you the proper procedures for that. But punching power is punching power, right? By the way, check out the Punch Doctor on YouTube. Really great stuff on the mechanics of punching, how to generate the most power. Check that out. Okay, week 2. Another what seems to be significant.
And I even added in some new things. First of all, training with weighted gloves, also known as heavy hand training. It's supposed to help with increasing speed and power of the punch. I also added in this rotational exercise with the cable machine.
With cable punches, it's actually very interesting. I personally don't do them because I mainly train at a commercial gym. So seeing someone with a cable go like that, it could draw a little bit of attention. However, I do like to do cable twists though. So I essentially just grab the cable and then twist, kind of simulating a hook, or I hold it out like that, and that also works your core very well. Or maybe it's just in my head that people give a shit at all. So fuck it, I'll give cable punches a shot next time I go. Okay, so week 3, he seems to plateau, maybe even lost a little bit of gains. And then week 4, he continues to feel sluggish. And I agree with what he says. I think it could very well be overtraining, because when you train power and explosiveness, that has a big toll on your nervous system. So it's important to take rest when you do that type of training.
What I concluded is maybe I was reaching the point of overtraining, because every week I was adding new exercises and also trying to push harder than the week before on the exercises I was already doing. And I think I reached a point where my training was outpacing my recovery. So what I really did was I cut the number of sets I was doing in half and or the number of time I was doing a specific form of training about in half.
And then he has some trouble with the machine being attached to the wood, so he ends up taping it to the wall. But once he actually got it fixed, he showed improvement yet again.
I don't want to damage this. So what I discovered is the wood I had my punch strength measuring device screwed to was beginning to warp outwards or bend outwards. And when I would punch it, this bow would go inwards, acting like a spring, absorbing some of my punch force, not allowing me to get all of that force into the measuring device for an accurate reading. So I later returned, this time hopefully for real. At first, I just used the sticky pad on the back of the device to see if I could get it to stick to the wall just long enough for me to punch it. It almost worked, but then with a little help from some Gorilla Tape, I got it to stick to the wall at least long enough for the proper test. 341! Yeah!
Oh man, I just can't help but think that his punches need better technique. Especially the hooks. I feel like they just require better fluidity. I know he likely will never see this, right? But I noticed that he mostly trains at home. I think one of the biggest things for him, at least at this point in his journey, is to train in an actual gym. Being able to see other fighters, see how they actually move, utilize their body. I think that'll be very helpful just to see how other people can execute at a high level.
So I ended up recording an average of plus 35.3 pounds across all punches. That's about a pound increase a day.
But for watching videos and hitting the bag on his own, I think he's made incredible progress. But he may be nearing that point where progress is really only going to come once he actually trains somewhere that they are meant to do that. Especially for his moment, there really are some things that can only be learned through sparring. All right, so the lesson's simple. You actually can improve your power punching as long as you stop baby slapping the bag and learn some actual technique. And if you want to see what amazing technique looks like under pressure, then you have to check out Canelo's hardest fights. Because against Golovkin, he wasn't just throwing bombs. He was actively trying to solve a puzzle, eating shots, and making every punch count. So click that video there, check it out, and I'll catch you later.